I know what I must do to grow and mature, channeling the explosive forces inside me when I alone control them, and I alone hold the key to my freedom. Tamed? Nothing could be further from the truth. And those who say it see me, the world, and themselves through eyes permanently impaired by prejudice and intellectual impotence. My weapon of choice is my mind, and its product is to actualize itself in the form of expression, art, where I retreat from the world that surrounds me and escape its suffocating embrace. Well, I got to say this one more thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Donna when she gets here in a second. I did a year in a halfway house in Richmond, Virginia called Franklin Grove. The men there have 90 days, free room and board, bus tokens, transportation to help them get a job. If they don't get a job in 90 days, they're out on the streets. Most of them have no one at all, no family, nobody. I met one man one day that was very depressed. He had 10 days left. He had been in for 80 days. And so I was talking to him about what his options are to move forward with his life. And I asked him a question. I said, in the 80 days that you've been here, how many applications have you put in for a job? He said, 3. If you're listening, just remember this. You've got to make that first step. But there must be a reason. And this is my show today. I'm just trying to kind of talk at the problem today a little bit. There must be a reason why many people who really desperately need to change the way they are, that listen to people like me and read the books of people like Nagura, still don't change their lives. I know that it's a lot of hard things. And so, I've got a program. I'm here for you. Rightthink.org. Call me. But if you're a person that won't do what's in your own best interest, there's nobody that can help you. And so we're just trying to encourage you and motivate you and give you some insights. And so with that said, we'll come back to the topic again in the future, I'm sure. But let me see. I think Donna will be here in just a second. Let me see if that's her.
Am I?
Come on in, Donna. Thanks. Hey, I'm going to just finish up what I was talking about while you get your headset on. Well, I wanted to just say that all week long I was trying to get my thoughts together because I've exposed a problem that I'm like a broken record. I know that. In last week's show, with the end of the show, when Gary Schaefer told the story about the Victors and a young inner city kid that he got out there on the team, and 6-7 years later, the kid was playing high school baseball and stopped during the game to come over and said, "Mr. Schaefer, thank you for what you did for me, because if it wasn't for you, I never would have been on this team playing baseball." Well, that makes it all worthwhile. And I wanted another inning kind of like that. So I asked a lot of people to give me something that I have overlooked, something that I just haven't figured out yet, why I can't get more people to respond to the love and the resources and the friendship that we're offering. Well, Donna, you had the best approach to this because, well, why don't we just start there? Donna, thanks for agreeing to be on the show today. We were going to do a whole show on this, and I got you really kind of spur of the moment to participate. But we've got an epidemic of a problem, and I'm doing the best I can to try to do something for the problem. So how are you doing today, Donna?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me back on the show. I just want to go back to what our whole theme was that has always been, change the world one person at a time. Really, it's a very tough world. It's a very hard change for people to make. But I just wanted to share just a little bit of when I read Debbie McDaniel's website, it just made me think about how part of the problem in people making a change, whether you're a person in prison, a person home that is depressed, a person that's just trying to make it in this world and it's very difficult, is it just all goes back to what she said as the voices that we hear in our mind, the whispers of whatever it is. If it's a negative thought or negative like things that you've been through in your past mistakes, these voices just becomes louder and louder in your mind, and it kind of puts you in a stuck place. There's people that want to make a difference. There's people maybe that want to get out there and make a change, but they can't seem to forget or be able to get past these thoughts. And it just made me think of, well, if we can't get past the bad thoughts, why don't we just go with the voice of truth? And to me, the voice of truth is what God says, which brought me to this wonderful song by Casting Crowns called The Voice of Truth. It's been around for a while, but I was going to read the lyrics because it's just so uplifting. It always brings me up if there's anything that I'm going through that maybe I'm down about or just struggling through maybe a situation. And I just wanted to share it this morning. And this is how it starts off. Oh, what I would do to have the kind of faith it takes to climb out of this boat I'm in onto the crashing waves, to step out of my comfort zone into the realm of the unknown where Jesus is, and he's holding on his hand. But the waves are calling out my name, and they laugh at me, reminding me of all the times I've tried before and failed. The waves, they keep on telling me time and time again, boy, you'll never win. You'll never win. But the voice of truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says, do not be afraid. The voice of truth says, this is for my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. Oh, what I would do to have the kind of strength it takes to stand before a giant with just a sling and a stone, surrounded by the sound of 1,000 warriors shaking in their armor, wishing they'd have had the strength to stand, but the giant's calling out my name, and he laughs at me, reminding me of all the times I've tried before and failed. The giant keeps on telling me, time and time again, boy, you'll never win, you'll never win. But the voice of truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says, do not be afraid. The voice of truth says, this is for my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the truth of faith. The stone was just the right size to put the giant on the ground. And the waves, they don't seem so high from on top of them looking down. I will soar with the wings of eagles when I stop and listen to the sound of Jesus singing over me. The voice of truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says, do not be afraid. The voice of truth says, this is for my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the truth of faith, voice of truth. I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. And I will listen and believe the voice of truth. I will listen and believe the voice of truth.
Wow. Those lyrics are about as good as anything I've ever read to tell you what you should do, the truth. I'd like to point this out. The song was written by Stephen Curtis Chapman and Mark Hall, and you can find it through Sony ATV Music Publishing Company. And I encourage you to Google it and watch the video. Now, Donna, the video of the song that you told me about, it had scripture on the screen over top of just beautiful scenes that illustrate this. Do you want to share any more about the song?
Sure. I just was going to share some of the verses that they showed with the lyrics, which I think just is very uplifting. I'll just kind of start again with the verse and then the lyric. It kind of goes together. Psalm 40:11. Do not withhold your mercy from me, Lord. May your love and truth always protect me. Isaiah 12:2. Surely God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. So back to the lyrics where this kind of relates. Oh, what I would do to have the kind of faith it takes to climb out of this boat I'm in, only the crashing waves, to step out of my comfort zone into the realm of the unknown, where Jesus is, and he's holding out his hand. But the waves are calling out my name, and they laugh at me, reminding me of all the times I've tried and failed. Hebrews 13:6. So we say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. The next verse is Acts 18:9. One night the Lord spoke to Paul in a vision. Do not be afraid. Keep on speaking. Do not be silent. The lyrics that go with that verse, the voice of truth says, do not be afraid. The voice of truth says, this is my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the truth of faith. The voice of truth. So Psalm 86:11, teach me your way, Lord, and I will walk in your truth. Oh, what I would do to have, this is the lyric, back to the lyrics. Oh, what I would do to have the kind of strength it takes to stand before a giant with just a sling and a stone, surrounded by the sound of 1,000 warriors shaking in their armor, wishing they'd have had the strength to stand. But the giant's calling out my name, and he laughs at me, reminding me of all the times I've tried before and failed. Matthew 14:27. But Jesus immediately said to them, take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. So this verse goes with the next lyric. The giant keeps on telling me time and time again, boy, never give up. You're never going to win. You're never going to win. Okay. The next verse, Psalm 56:4. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust, I will not be afraid. The lyrics, but the voice of truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says, do not be afraid. The voice of truth says, this is my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. The next verse, 1 Samuel 17:49. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The lyrics, but the stone was just the right size to put the giant on the ground. And the waves, they don't seem so high. From on top of them looking down, I will soar with the wings of eagles when I stop and listen to the sound of Jesus singing over me. Matthew 14:29. Then Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came towards Jesus. And the voice of truth says, do not be afraid. The voice of truth says, this is my glory. The verse, Matthew 3:17. And a voice from heaven said, this is my son whom I love. With him I am well pleased. The lyrics, out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. And then the last verse, Psalm 43:3. Send forth your light and your truth. Let them guide me. Let them bring me to the holy mountain, to the place where you dwell. In the last verse of the song, I will listen and believe the voice of truth. I will listen and believe the voice of truth.
You know, fear, it always comes back to fear. That people just fear something. There's so many fears. The word afraid was throughout this whole song, the voice of truth. And so I think what I get out of that is that we just have to trust God. What do you get out of it? Why does this song just mean so much to you, Donna?
Well, I think because the truth is God. The truth is he has the final say. He's the one in charge. And if we just give it up to him, if we just let our thinking, our truth just sink in.